The second chapter of Acts was a Jesus music, an early contemporary Christian music group composed of sisters Annie Herring and Nelly Greisen and brother Matthew Ward. They began performing in 1973 and enjoyed the period of greatest success during the 1970s. The group disbanded in 1988. History. The second chapter of Acts began as a result of the trio singing at home together as Annie played the piano. Following the death of the parents, Nelly and Matthew, still minors, moved in with their older sister, Annie, and her husband, recording engineer and producer, Buck Herring. Annie was a self-taught singer and songwriter who composed and played her songs around the family piano. Her brother and sister would often join in as she played, and eventually they developed extremely tight and intricate harmonies. They started singing for local coffee houses and small gatherings, then gained the notice of Pat Boone, who arranged a contract to record and release 2 singles with MGM, Jesus Is and I'm So Happy. The fledgling trio also came to the attention of 1960s folk singer Barry Mcguire, who had recently become a Christian and was preparing to record his first Christian music album, produced by Buck Herring. The siblings provided background vocals for Seeds and Mcguire's 1974 follow-up Lighten Up. The trio released the debut album, With Footnotes, in 1974. This album featured Easter Song, which would become a signature piece for the group and has been recorded by many other artists since. This was followed up with In the Volume of the Book in 1975, the year that also saw the release of a live album with Barry Mcguire, To the Bride, which included a band called David, who supported Second Chapter of Acts on tour. Second Chapter of Acts' first 3 releases were issued by Records, and the group toured with Mcguire intermittently for 3 years. The group went on a touring hiatus in 1976. Annie released her first solo record on the Sparrow Records label, founded that year by the executive who had signed them to the Mer label, Billy Ray Hearn. For the summer of 1977, they were joined on an 18-city tour by Phil Keaggy, and the result was the live triple album, How the West Was Won. The contract with Mer fulfilled, they moved as a group to Sparrow. The Sparrow debut, Mansion Builder, was followed up with The Roar of Love, Rejoice, Singer So, and Together Live. Second Chapter moved to their own Live Oak label with the release of Night Light in 1985. And the final recording of original material, Far Away Places, in 1987. The Voices can be heard among other Christian artists on 2 benefit singles in 1985. Something Now, credited to the cause on Sparrow Records to aid famine relief in Africa and Fight the Fight. Rescue the Unborn, which featured over 100 Christian artists to benefit the Christian pro-life movement, released on Live Oak. Second Chapter of Acts broadened their appeal with the release of Hymns and Hymns 2, reaching audiences with more traditional music. Hymns proved to be the best-selling release, receiving a Dove Award for Best Praise and Worship Album of the Year in 1987, except for 2 sabbatical years in 1976 and 1983. Second Chapter of Acts continued to tour until 1988. The final concert was in Houston, Texas on August 12 of that year. Second Chapter was recognized by the Gospel Music Association in 1999 by their induction into its Gospel Music Hall of Fame. Annie and Matthew also recorded several solo projects during the Second Chapter of Acts years. Both have continued to release new material and perform concerts as of 2011. Roles of group members. Annie was the main songwriter of the group and the only one who played an instrument. Her admittedly unschooled compositional style, with its frequent irregular rhythms, added somewhat progressive rock-like elements to what was otherwise a soft rock sound. Matthew and Nelly initially made the occasional small contribution to the lyrics, and Matthew developed as a songwriter for the group as his solo career grew. Annie and Matthew sang most of the solo parts. Nelly, whose voice could be hard to distinguish from Annie's, usually sang lead only on songs where each member took a verse or on solo pieces, without the others singing back up. My Jesus I Love Thee and Sing Over Me, where she was backed by the others, were rare exceptions. Her voice was considered the glue to the second chapter of Acts sound, and her harmony parts were generally the most difficult to sing. Discography. Albums 1974, with footnotes, 1975, in the volume of the book. 1975, To the Bride. Most of this is by Mcguire. The second chapter section, one side plus 2 songs, consists mostly of songs they never released anywhere else. 1977, How the West Was. One half of this was by second chapter, half by Phil Keaggy. It was later reissued on 2 CDs, 1978, Mansion Builder, 1980, The Roar of Love, 1981, Rejoice, 1983, Singer Sower, 1983, Together Live. 3 sides of this were by second chapter, one side by the Martians. It includes one second chapter song that was never released anywhere else. This is the only second chapter album that has never been released on CD. 1985, Nightlight. 1986, Hymns. 1987, Far Away Places. 1988, Hymns 2. 1989, Hymns Instrumental. Compilations 1981, Encores, 1992 to 20 issued on 2 CDs or 2 cassettes. 2006, Very Best of Second Chapter of Acts. Video 1983, Together Live. 1998, First Love. Various artists.